Hello, dear listeners. Glad to see you again. As promised, everything is now on the new schedule. If you enjoy this format, I'll keep making more and improving the quality. Today on our podcast, we have a former cemetery caretaker who faced a series of terrifying reasons that forced him to leave his job. Enjoy the show. Welcome back, everyone. This is your friendly storyteller, and you're listening to Bad Dreams, Inc. Tonight, we have a very special guest with us in the studio. His name is Lucas, and for the last 12 years, he's been the caretaker of Oak Haven Memorial Park, a cemetery just outside a small town in rural Pennsylvania. Lucas reached out to me with a story, one that he says changed him, and one that he hasn't told many people. Lucas, thanks for coming in.
Thanks for having me.
So let's start at the beginning. Oak Haven. Describe it for our listeners.
It's an old place, founded in the 1880s. Not huge, but not tiny. Maybe 5 acres on a hillside. Old oaks, old headstones. A lot of Civil War veterans are buried there. My job was basic. Cut the grass, trim around the markers, clear leaves, help with new interments, dig the graves. Just keep the place looking respectable.
A quiet job.
Usually. You get used to the quiet, used to being alone out there. I had a little tool shed and old golf cart to get around. It was peaceful until last October.
What happened in October?
It started with the ground. I came in one morning, a Tuesday. There was a section in the oldest part near the back fence line where the woods start. The ground was messed up. Not like an animal dug it up. It was a patch of dirt, maybe 3 feet across, just churned up, like something had boiled up from underneath.
Could it have been an animal? A badger or...
No, too big. And the dirt was thrown outward in all directions. And it was clean. No roots, no grass. Just loose, fresh dirt. And it was cold to the touch, even though the sun was hitting it.
Did you report it?
To who? My boss at the town council? He'd think I was crazy. I figured maybe kids, a prank, though it was a weird prank. I just moved it over with a rake and went about my day. But then it happened again. 2 nights later, in a different spot. Same size, same look. Cold dirt.
Did you think about setting up a camera?
I didn't have one. And honestly, I was starting to get a bad feeling. A deep down wrong feeling. It wasn't just the dirt. It was the quiet. The birds stopped singing near that back tree line. My dog, an old beagle named Barney I'd sometimes bring to work, he refused to go back there. He'd just whine and pull on his leash.
What did you do?
I started locking the main gate extra tight. I checked the fence, nothing was broken. Then, one afternoon, I saw the man.
What man?
He was standing just inside the tree line at the back. Tall, very thin. He was wearing a long, dark coat, too warm for October, and a wide-brimmed hat like an old preacher might wear. I couldn't see his face. It was in shadow. I waved, called out, "Hey, the cemetery's closed to visitors back here." He didn't move. He just stood there, watching me. I took a few steps toward him, and he took a step back, deeper into the trees. I didn't follow. Something told me not to.
Did he see him again?
Oh yeah. After that, he was there almost every day. Always in the distance, always watching. Never closer, never farther, just standing at that tree line. I called the sheriff's office once. A deputy came out, walked back there with me. There was nothing. No footprints, no sign of anyone. He said it was probably a hunter getting disoriented. Told me to call if I saw him on the property proper. But the deputy, he felt it too. He got quiet back there. Just said, "This spot feels bad, Lucas," and left.
And the disturbed ground kept happening?
It stopped for a few days after the deputy came. I thought maybe it was over. Then, on Halloween night, we had a burial. A young woman from town, Sarah Gable. She'd passed suddenly. It was a late afternoon service, very sad. After the family left and the other workers left, it was my job to finish filling the grave. It's a solemn task. I was alone. It got dark early. My work light was on. just this little island of light in the dark.
That sounds incredibly lonely.
It is, but that night it was worse than lonely. I was about halfway done, just shoveling dirt back in, and I heard a sound from the new grave. A thump, a solid thump from down in the hole. I froze. My blood went cold. I told myself it was settling dirt, a clump falling. Then it happened again. Thump. And again. Thump. Not random. Rhythmic, like a slow heartbeat, coming from inside the coffin.
My God.
I couldn't move. I just stared into that hole. The thumping got a little faster. Not frantic, but steady. Then a scraping sound, like wood on wood, like nails dragging along the inside of the lid. I dropped my shovel. I ran to my cart, fumbled for my phone. My hands were shaking so bad I could barely dial 911. I told the operator there was a sound. Someone might be alive in the grave. She said help was coming. I sat there by my cart staring at that grave from 20 yards away, listening to that scraping sound get louder. I couldn't go back over there. Then the sound stopped. Just silence. Worse than the noise. I saw the sheriff's cruiser lights coming up the road, flashing blue and red through the trees. I felt relief, but then I looked back at the grave, and I saw him, the tall man. He wasn't at the tree line anymore. He was standing right next to Sarah Gable's open grave, looking down into it. He must have walked right past me in the dark and I never saw him. He was so tall and thin, unnaturally thin.
Did he see you?
He turned his head, slowly. The hatch shadow was so deep I couldn't see a face, just darkness. He looked right at me. Then he looked back at the grave and he knelt down. He reached an arm down into the hole. It was a long arm. He was reaching for the coffin. And then the deputy's car pulled through the gate, headlights sweeping across the hillside. When the light hit the grave, the man was gone. Just gone, like he was never there. What did the deputy do? He and another officer came over. They had flashlights, big ones. They shined them down into the grave. They asked me what I heard. I told them. They listened. Nothing. One of them said, "We have to check, Lucas, for liability." They got ropes, hooked them to the lowering device. It was a terrible, slow process. They raised the coffin back up to the surface. It was quiet. They opened the lid.
Was she...
Sarah Gable was there. She was gone. No signs of life. But the deputy pointed his light. On the inside of the coffin lid, there were marks. Deep, parallel grooves scratched into the wood, like something had tried to claw its way out from the inside. Fresh marks. Sawdust was still on her dress. They checked her hands. Her fingernails were clean. No wood, no damage. It wasn't her. They closed it up, lowered it back down. They didn't know what to say. They filled out a report, called it a probable malfunction of the burial equipment causing settling noises. They didn't have an explanation for the scratches. They told me to go home, get some rest. I was in shock. I just nodded.
But that wasn't the end.
No, that was just the start of the real horror. I took a week off. I was having bad dreams, couldn't sleep. But I needed the job. I went back. The first day back was quiet. No tall man, no disturbed earth. I started to think maybe my mind had played tricks. Stress, loneliness. Then that Friday, old Mrs. Jenkins died. She was in her 90s, lived in a nursing home in town. Natural causes. Her burial was scheduled for next Monday. On Saturday, I was doing my rounds. I drove my cart past the area where they dug her grave, ready for Monday. The grave was open, covered with a green fake grass tarp, waiting. And the tarp was moving. Not from wind. There was no wind. It was bulging up, like something was underneath the grave.
Moving? The tarp was moving?
Yes, a slow, pulsing kind of movement. I stopped the cart. I didn't want to get out. I just watched it from a distance. The movement stopped after a minute. I sat there for 10 more minutes, but nothing happened. I knew I had to check. I couldn't leave it like that. I walked over, my heart hammering. I grabbed the corner of the tarp. I yanked it back.
What was underneath?
Nothing, just the open grave. 6 feet deep, neat rectangular sides. I shone my flashlight all around the bottom. Nothing but dirt and a few worms. No animal, no hole, but the air coming out of it was freezing. It was a 60-degree day, but the air from that hole was like January. And there was a smell, not decay, just damp, like wet clay and old stones. I covered it back up and got out of there. That night, I couldn't stop thinking about it. I had a bad feeling, a real bad feeling. I drove back to the cemetery around midnight. I don't know why, I just felt like I had to. I parked outside the gate, didn't turn on my headlights. I used the flashlight and walked in.
That's brave or reckless.
It was reckless, stupid, but I had to know. I crept up to Mrs. Jenkins' open grave. The tarp was off. It was lying in a heap a few feet away, and the tall man was there. He was in the grave. I could only see him from the chest up. He was just standing down there in the bottom of a hole that was meant for an old woman's casket tomorrow. He was perfectly still, and he was facing me.
Did he do anything?
He raised one arm, slowly. He pointed at me. Not a threatening gesture, just pointing, like he was identifying me, marking me. Then he pointed down, into the grave next to him. He did this 3 times. Point at me, point down. His arm was so long and thin. I couldn't see his face under that hat, just a deeper black. I ran. I didn't look back. I got in my truck and drove home. I didn't sleep.
What about the burial the next day?
I called in sick. I couldn't face it. My boss was annoyed, but he got someone else to cover. I stayed home, blinds drawn. I felt like I was being watched through the windows. That afternoon, my phone blew up. Texts from my coworker who covered for me, calls from the boss. I finally answered.
What happened?
The burial went wrong. They lowered Mrs. Jenkins' casket into the grave. The family was there, weeping. When it hit the bottom, there was a loud crack, a snapping sound. The funeral director thought a lowering strap broke, but then the ground, it shifted. The dirt at the sides of the grave collapsed inward, partially burying the coffin. People screamed. They had to get equipment to dig it back out so they could rebury it properly. It was a huge scandal for the funeral home, a trauma for the family. But my coworker, he told me the worst part. When they finally cleared the dirt off the coffin lid, there were scratches, deep, parallel grooves, just like on Sarah Gable's coffin, fresh ones.
Lucas, I have no words. Did you tell anyone about the man?
Who would believe me? I sounded crazy even to myself. I went back to work after that. What else could I do? I needed the money. For a few weeks, it was quiet. No man, no dirt patches. I started to hope it was over. Then in early December, we had a burial for a teenage boy. Car accident. Tragic. The whole town was there. I made sure I was far away during the service, cutting grass on the opposite hill. After everyone left, I had to fill the grave. I was terrified. But it went okay. No sounds, nothing. I finished as the sun was setting. I was putting my tools in the shed when I saw something glint near the boy's fresh grave. I walked over. It was a small silver locket. It had fallen on the grass, maybe from a family member. I picked it up to put in the lost and found at the office. As I held it, my head swam, like I was going to pass out, and I saw something. In my mind. Not a dream, clearer than that. I saw the tall man. He was standing in a room. A boy's bedroom, sports posters on the wall. The boy from the grave was sleeping in his bed. The tall man stood over him. He didn't touch him, he just leaned down, close to the boy's face, and he breathed out. A slow, long breath. The boy stirred in his sleep, frowning. Then the man was gone, and I was back, standing by the grave, holding the locket.
A vision? You think you saw how the boy died?
I don't know what I saw. The official report said the boy fell asleep at the wheel, drifted into oncoming traffic. No alcohol, no drugs, just fell asleep. But in my vision, he was in his own bed. It was like the man stole his breath or his life while he slept, and the boy just never woke up right again.
After that, things got worse. The tall man started showing up closer, not just at the tree line. I'd see him between headstones, maybe 50 yards away, always watching. And the cold spots started. You'd be walking a path and suddenly hit a pocket of air so cold it made your teeth ache. Then it was gone a step later. My tools started going missing. My shovel, my rake. I'd find them later, placed somewhere else. Sometimes they'd be clean. Sometimes they'd be covered in that same cold, damp dirt. The final straw was the names.
The names?
The names on the headstones, in the oldest section. I'd come in the morning and on some of the very old weathered stones, new names would be scratched into them. Not carved, scratched, like with a sharp rock or a knife. Names that didn't belong. I'd clean them off, and the next day they'd be back on different stones. Sometimes just first names. Jacob, Eleanor, Thomas. One morning I came in and on the flat stone of a Civil War colonel, my name was scratched. Lucas. And underneath, a date. Next Friday's date. I quit that day. I cleared out my shed, went to the town council and quit. I gave no real reason. I said I was moving. I haven't set foot in Oak Haven since.
That's an incredible story, Lucas. Horrifying. Is there any theory, any idea what this tall man was or is?
I've thought about it every day. I don't think he's a ghost, not like in the movies. He felt older. He felt like he belonged to the ground itself. I started looking into town records, old newspapers. I found one story from 1903, a series of sudden deaths in the town. 5 people in 1 month, all seeming to just die in their sleep. A preacher at the time wrote about a breath stealer, a folklore thing from even older times, a thing that would claim the dying or sometimes make the dying and prepare a place for them in the earth, that it would disturb the ground where it meant to take someone. I think the tall man is that, a breath stealer. I think the disturbed ground was him preparing graves, not digging them, but claiming the spots, tainting them. I think he was choosing people in the town, and then when they were buried in his claimed ground, he would visit. He would reach into their coffins, and he would take something. Not their bodies, something else. I think the scratches, that's what's left behind when he takes it. A kind of spiritual struggle, etched into the wood.
And the names on the stones?
I think they were the next ones, the ones he was choosing. And my name, I think I saw too much. I was on his ground, in my way. I think he was marking me. The date he scratched, that came and went last week. I stayed inside all day, all night. Nothing happened, but that doesn't mean it's over. Because I called my replacement at Oak Haven last week just to check in, pretending to be friendly. He said things have been quiet, except for one thing. He said he keeps finding little piles of that same cold, damp dirt on the porch of the caretaker shed, right by the door, like a gift or a warning.
Chilling advice. Lucas, thank you again for your courage. Listeners, that's all for this episode of Bad Dreams Inc. Stay aware of the shadows, and we'll talk next time.